Don't underestimate what I'm about to tell you. Now, in order for you to really understand, I need you to watch this video here. And you can find it on Facebook as well as my YouTube channel. I'm not trying to get you to come to YouTube channel. I honestly, there's a lot of things that I could do that I could be making money in real estate. But it's because I actually am concerned. And I want to give you reality about a financial storm that is brewing for 2026. Now, I know you may doubt me, which is why I also, at the end, will want you to watch the video that I already did explaining. I think I did a very good job explaining the story part of it. But one thing I could tell you, numbers do not lie. Okay? And with that, I begin. I want you to understand that the United States national debt right now, as of today, is $38.35 trillion. Trillion, not billions, trillion. Okay? Of which the debt held by the public, like public companies and all that, is 30.77, and intergovernmental holdings is 7.58 trillion. 7.58 trillion. Now, as I explained to you before, it's going to exceed 39 trillion by 2026. And actually, I think it's actually going to be even a lot more, because if you notice, we are involved in many wars that's going to end up wasting a lot of money, including stuff what I personally believe natural disasters that will happen that will exceed us to that threshold. Okay? Now, that being said, a lot of you don't even know what GDP is, gross domestic product. Well, some people may say, because they are fooling you with statistics, that the gross domestic product slightly went up. But let me explain it to you this way. Gross domestic product is what we produce, right? That we sell, what we produce, and we actually sell to other countries as well. So, to make it simple, it's like if you work for minimum wage at $15 an hour, and your minimum wage went up to $17 an hour, right? But yet, your cost of living is that much higher, right? Your debt, your rent went up a certain percentage that exceed that minimum wage increase. The food, 28% more. All these things factor into what you're getting paid. So when you come to see what you're getting paid versus what the debt that what you have to pay out, is so much more. So it's not keeping up with inflation. As you know, as I mentioned in the other video, I don't want to sound redundant. Since 1913, when the federal cartel, the banking cartel was created, Federal Reserve Bank, we lost, Americans see as a fact, more than 97% of our buying power. Now, that being said, this is the financial storm that is brewing starting next year. Number one, that debt that we have, as I mentioned, of 38.35 trillion, there's a lot of bonds, right? And for you to understand treasury bonds, some of them is going to mature within 5 years, which starts in 2026. Now, let me explain to you what I mean by that. When they were taken out, okay, the interest rate on them was about 1.583. Remember, because before COVID, it was low. So that being said, they're going to eventually, hopefully, they're going to refinance again. So that's going to go up to an average 3.5, 3.75. So basically, that's going to be an increase of 1.80%. So over 1 basis point. So what I mean by that is those treasury bonds that other countries are buying, right? They actually, I want you to understand, they're giving us a loan. They're giving us a loan and we pay them interest. So if the interest is 1.583 on average, 5 years, when they mature now in 2026, we're going to pay that much more now, 3.382, which means that our national debt, the interest alone, is going to exceed by next year, starting around January, February, right? It's going to exceed $1 trillion. That's right. $1 trillion in interest alone. Right now, we're paying about 970 billion. So as high as it is. Okay? So it's just going to get that much worse. We're exceeding our military spending. It's going to exceed our Medicare. So that's important because, as I mentioned before, it's going to start cutting down what we are able to supply. Now, as I mentioned before, we may have a powerful military, but no one works for free. If we can't pay the military, we can't supply them with weapons, what good is it? If you think I'm lying, look at what happened with Britain. They were a powerful Navy, and you saw what happened. Again, I don't want to sound redundant, so watch these videos as well. Now, another thing that's happening is, as you know, it's a commercial real estate banking. Now, the commercial real estate banking is 4.88 trillion in debt. Now, if you recall, as I mentioned before, a lot of these department stores office building, they have vacancy rates, right? Usually a normal vacancy rate is about 5%. But because many of you are buying through Amazon or different companies, then obviously a lot of these buildings, commercial buildings, are half vacant. They can't rent them out, right? So what happens is, also on starting next year, they're going to start refinancing, okay? Or they're going to come due. The loans are going to come due. It's a commercial loan, so it's going to come due. So they had a low interest rate, so also they will go to that much higher market rate, which means a lot of landlords will not be able to afford the mortgage or the interest payment. And we already know it's about 33% of them, and they're going to start defaulting. What that means is that's going to be added towards the bank sheet of failure. A lot of banks are going to, going to end up foreclosed. They're going to end up shutting down, right? Because they don't have the funds to back it up. It's too many of them, especially regional banks, okay? So what happens as well, when you understand, if I as a renter cannot pay the landlord the mortgage, right? Then obviously the bank, after a while, they're going to have to try to work with me, but they can't because they're going to be outnumbered, and I'll get into that as well because we do leverage money, right? It's called fractional lending. But that being said, if I cannot pay the mortgage, what they're going to do, they're going to foreclose on me. And then that difference, they're going to put it in a loss, on a bank loss. Now, it's going to be really bad because unlike before, then the bank just sells it to somebody else, right? But they can't do that now. Why? Because the property's worth, or the value of it, has to do with net operating income times cap rate. And I'm not going to get into that part of it, but the point is that the value is worth by how many rent the property collects. It's an income producing property. So if the property is not, getting income, then the value goes down, which means that becomes a negative on the bank. And then the bank has to try to liquefy them or get liquidity, and they don't have it because of what I call fractional lending. I explained that in another video. If I lend you $1,000 and you go to the bank keeps 5% of that if they have the fractional reserve for 5%, and they lend out the other 95%, which is $950. Now, so the other person goes $950, deposits in the second bank. Okay, now the bank stays with 5% of that, and they lend out the rest, and this keeps repeating itself until they lend it out hundreds of times. Right? It's called fractional lending. Well, what happens is now, for example, if I came to collect my money back that I deposit, and a lot of people did that, the bank don't have the money because they basically lend it out based on the assumption of the money they're going to get back through loans, that the house of cards is going to come crashing down because that money's not there. I think I explained it a lot better in the other video, but basically it means that I can't pay everybody back, and then you have what is bankrupt. That's just the same thing with the government. So the issue, getting back to macroeconomics, is that, as you recall, I mentioned that Saudi Arabia, through the petrodollar, used to control many nations to change their currency into the petrodollar, the dollar. They couldn't buy oil unless they changed the dollar. Well, now, since 2024, Saudi Arabia actually joined BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And there are many other countries that have joined as well, like Iran and many other. Cuba are part of the list, Venezuela, which is why we are at war, not with Venezuela, we are at war with BRICS, because the people that own the dollar, that manage the dollar, okay, they are losing power because supply and demand. A lot of these countries, they got tired of the negative sanctions, and they are not buying the treasury bonds. So much so that right now the treasury actually went and bought X amount of billions because they couldn't sell those notes. Okay, that's why there's a lot that's happening right now coming this year, because BRICS started BRICS Bridge, in which now within these other countries united, and they're trading among themselves without using the SWIFT system, okay, as well as the petrodollar. So now people are able to trade so much faster among themselves without depending on the dollar, without going to New York or London to then wait a couple of days before somebody could actually trade. All right, they barter. It's like a barter system, except you're paying on the United States. So what we do with that when we keep printing money is that we are subsidizing, all these nations are subsidizing our debt, so we make them poorer. And countries are tired of that. They're tired of our negative sanctions. They're tired of becoming poorer because we put that pressure, especially Latin America. So this is what you people don't understand. We create coups. We take their government out of power. We put people that represent our interests, and then we rob them also with their central bank through our financing. this group of people, because it's even in America, there's a group of people, they have no loyalty to America. So there's a lot going on where now, starting January, BRICS system, many countries will join, and they will introduce their system where their currency is going to be backed 40% by gold, so it's tangible, right? And 60% within 5 nations, what's called the baskets of goods, in which that way not each country will not be able to dictate what the currency is worth, because it's going to be through artificial intelligence. It's highly advanced, and it's going to supersede the dollar, and obviously it's tangible, and many countries are joining them. They're going to be part of it. They're going to drop the dollar, okay, because they don't want to deal with us. So remember when I told you there's consequences to our actions, what we do, bombing Venezuela, doing this, Iran, Iraq. So all these countries got together and they created a system. They're going to start in January. It's already been proven. It was tested, and it's operational. It's called BRIC Bridge, and they're going to have their own currency, and it starts in January, which means many of these countries that were forced to use the dollar because they couldn't trade otherwise are going to stop dropping the dollar. Supply and demand. That's not that much demand. There's going to be a lot of supply, creating a hyperinflation here in America. Now, if nobody wants to buy those treasury bonds, what does Federal Reserve and our government have to do? Raise the interest rate, which is also bad for our economy because, right, if they raise the interest rate, you can't get a loan. Right, you can't qualify. It's going to cost you that much more. That also means a lot of these companies are going to go out of business, or they're going to lay off people, and that starts a domino effect. And if you understand fractional lending, once again, okay, what happens is a lot of people want to collect their money. They don't have it, and it's going to create a cycle, and the house of cards is going to come crashing down. Now, I'm going to be putting all these graphs up here, all these to show you, like de-dollarization. Okay, we used to be at 71%. In 2000, now we at 56.3%, and it's dropping. Keep in mind that we are targeting, like China, for example. All they have to do is return our treasury bonds, right? And what happens? We in a lot of deep trouble. So all these things are going to start happening next year, okay? And we're going to see that it's going to be drastic, okay? Don't let them fool you. Don't let them fool you, okay? Again, because we used to just print money. We keep printing money, and all these nations were paying for our debt. That's not going to be longer the case. And we used to attack them if they threatened to drop the dollar. But now, because it's powerful superpowers like Russia and China, now these smaller nations that were forced to use the dollar will drop the dollar and go with them. And they're going to try to protect that system, which is honestly, it's a multipolar system. It is better for the world. We, or the people running our nation, these elites have robbed the world. And it's obviously the world has waken up. Even many Americans are waking up. If you haven't woken up after seeing what we're doing in Gaza, spending money and sending weapons and killing people, or for what? So you as a taxpayer pay for it? So you as a taxpayer die while they profit through sending all these weaponries, all these missiles? They could be investing here, but they don't want that, right? Because it's slow, right? Like bridges, infrastructures. No, they invest in bombs. It's a lot quicker. Boom, a missile, $1 million, and they're making all this money through you, the taxpayer, because even that system is corrupt. It was not meant to be that way. That's why under the Constitution, there was war bonds. It's a lot that I don't have to explain, but to give you tidbits and idea, I need you to watch these videos, and I keep posting them up because you could have a better understanding. I think I allocate a lot of information there. I shouldn't use that word. My verbiage, sometimes I get nervous and I lose track of what I'm conveying, but the fact of the matter is I articulate better when I write it down. And I've written a lot of stuff, and then I make the video reading those things so you can understand. And I don't want to waste your time reading all these things here. I have a lot of pages, but believe me, it was coming 2006. Besides that, I saw it in a vision, and I put it up there. You can see visions, you know, spiritual thing. A lot of people may not believe in that, but this is why I also did all these other videos and show it to you mathematically. Okay, so a lot's going to be happening. A lot of nations going to be joining BRICS. They're upset at us, so they're going to be dropping their holdings. Okay, the reserve they used to have with SWIFT, because they have billions, a lot of billions in SWIFT. These countries, well, now they don't have to have that because they're going to be part of BRICS. Thus, all that money that we used to grab, right, and the assumption of that money when we lend out, and if you multiply through through fractional lending, that's no longer going to be the case. So it's a legal Ponzi scheme, okay, with funds that we do not have, and it's going to come crashing down. Now, how I know this for a fact? Let me show you something right now. Those of you that don't know nothing, the GDP at 31 trillion. Well, debt to GDP ratio right now is at 123%. Right now, 123%. Okay, now when those bonds mature next year, we're going to see that 123%. And if you don't understand what that means that if your income is $1,000, then 123% will be what? 123%. Thus, 23% more than 100%, which in this case on $1,000 is $230. $230 more. So that means that your income is 23% less than what it should be. Because how could you are in debt, you are overextended. 100% is full, right? If it's 100% of 1,000, it's 1,000, right? In other words, you're short. You can't pay the loan back. Now, granted, many countries that we are fighting against, that we dare to fight and put trade wars against them, like China, they giving us loans. What do you think is going to happen? You're like, you know what? The hell with that. No, give me my money back. Now, when all these nations start collecting, we don't have the money to pay them because we are overextended in debt. Do you realize that? Therefore, that's when the market's going to start crashing down. And honestly, that's going to start happening, I believe. Honestly, I hope I'm wrong because I want to sell real estate. I want to get married. I want to have a good life. But I see this happening from now to 2030. And I believe when I mean now, I mean 2026. This is why I know there's going to be a war, because the people in power don't want to lose that power and they're losing that control. There's nothing stopping other people from using now another monetary system. We were in control. We had the petrol system. We had the Swiss system. There was no other competitors, but now there is. And it starts in January of this coming year. I almost forgot. He that controls the oil controls the power. Now, Venezuela is the biggest oil reserve in the world. So Mexico also produces oil. Now, among both of them, it equals to about 33% of the oil that we import. Okay, so that being said, the oil that they have, we have the industrial, the machinery to convert it into fuel, diesel, and so forth. Okay, so even though the United States produces its own oil, is a lot more expensive, fragmented, whatever they get the oil from is more expensive. Thus, we rely a lot on their oil. And in order to change that, it takes billions and a long time for us to change that. So if Mexico still upset because we stole their land, like Texas and California and all that, and we did steal it, all right, historical facts, all right, and even to this day, and back then, the standard, it becomes null and void because it was under duress. Remember, when you never sign a contract under duress or under threat, that contract becomes null and void. And that's actually being fought in international court. Mexico put a claim. Not that they obviously want the land back, but they want some money for what they, for their losses. Okay. If you know, the state of California alone is one of the 3 tops in the world compared to nations as far as what they produce in GDP and all that. And it was part of Mexico. So they're not happy. And obviously they don't have to fight us with soldiers. All they have to do is keep working with Venezuela, control their oil. And if they just control 20% and stop delivering 20% of oil, in which we rely on and we sell forward, we are the middleman, that will create a drastic amount of gas and prices hike in California and Texas. You imagine like delivering food, diesel for trucks. It will have a major impact, as well as utilities, because utility uses gas and fuel, petroleum, in order to supply you with light. So many states will be affected in America, and that will be a major impact to the United States. So again, just because you think that the United States is powerful, we stopped producing a lot of the stuff and we outsource it. Okay, and we became the middleman. Well, all these countries are cutting out the middleman, and they are trading among themselves, no longer needing the United States. So thus, we're losing a lot of power, control, and all these companies that made a lot of money, right, that run America, the oligarchs, they're not happy. They're losing power, they're losing control, they're losing money. And obviously, we cannot take upon all these other nations. We outnumbered. And if we decide to go, for example, with atom bombs, we're just going to destroy all of us. So what good is it? And again, these people are so evil that they'll hide in bunkers and allow you to die for them. Okay? And wait until everything is over. So that's where we are at now. Okay, so multipolar world. which BRICS has become very powerful. Many nations are joining them, okay, because they see the negative sanctions and what we've done, and they really are not happy with us. But they had no other option because they needed to trade with other countries to survive. Look, for example, Cuba. Cuba, a lot of people want to name Fidel Castro line. Look, that's for the Cuban people. But one thing is for a fact, when Cuba cannot trade for other products, they cannot sell because we have embargoes, we have negative sanctions in which we threaten tariffs, and we threaten with fines if anyone dares to trade with Cuba. Then obviously Cuba's out alone. But now that Cuba has joined BRICS, unless we bomb them, things are going to change drastically for the better. And you're going to see there's going to be positive changes to Cuba, just like Venezuela. And the world is changing. You know, honestly, we've been like parasites. That's a fact. You know, it's not about the USA, your government. No, those are elites. Those are companies running America, corporations running America, foreign, some of them. And they control what goes on around the world. And the world is tired. And it's time for a change, unfortunately, because we are part here of America. We're born in America. But our country's a parasite. It is evil. And it's been robbing the world. And it's time for a change. So, you ready for that? You're going to see I'm right. You know, besides the vision, I predicted all these things. I saw it. Hey, you know, I wish I was wrong. But that's what's happening. Thank you.